James B. Comey, Seth Rich, Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, DNC corruption, or Russia? Hey, it's Prince of Queens, and we're deep in the grips of a war of narratives coming from leftist media like CNN, the LA Times, and NPR, as well as a counter-narrative from right-wing sources like Fox News. Long story short, Trump and his cabinet fired FBI Director James B. Comey about a week ago, citing that they didn't like the way Comey handled the investigation around Hillary Clinton's emails. But of course, that explanation would be too simple for mainstream leftist media to believe, and they are saying Trump is just covering his ass because Comey was going to investigate his ties to Russia. So what do I think it really is? Well, first, let's examine the evidence for the ties with Russia. Oh wait, there isn't really any evidence, basically, at all whatsoever. There's just rumors. Now, a lot of people are citing that Lieutenant General Michael Flynn being fired was evidence of Trump's administration being tied to Russia, but we don't really know why he was fired. Here's what the LA Times says about it. Two issues are at play here. On the day Flynn and Kislyak spoke, December 29th, President Obama had imposed sanctions on Russia to punish Vladimir Putin's government for its interference in the presidential election. Some people who have read the transcript of Flynn's conversation with Kislyak believe that he tried to undermine Obama's policy. More broadly, Democrats allege that people associated with Trump may have colluded with Russian officials to try to influence the election outcome. Flynn's contacts with Kislyak have revived attention to those issues. This is obviously completely vague, which is more than a fucking pattern when it comes to mainstream media reporting on Trump's administration's supposed ties to Russia. There's never been a single shred of actual evidence of ties to Russia, but rather a string of anonymous people asking that we take them at their word, claiming to work for the CIA or something, but of course, the people with the footage of From Russia with Trump are anonymous, so they could work for Walmart for all we know, assuming these people even exist. So, mainstream leftist sources are saying that Trump fired Comey because Comey was investigating Flynn, and supposedly Flynn reveals a connection between Russia and Trump, despite any evidence even being mentioned, let alone given. And they say all of this because supposedly Trump told Comey, "I hope you can let this go," in relation to investigating Flynn. I'll repeat, in reference to Comey investigating Flynn, Trump told Comey, "I hope you can let this go," though it was not an order, but simply something Trump said before firing him. This, again, is being used to paint Trump as having something to hide, even though nobody has ever even speculated much about what it is specifically that he is hiding. They basically just keep saying, "Russia, Russia, Russia!" Like we're supposed to believe Trump signed a deal with Putin to ship every American to the gulag, and that any day now we're all supposed to board a freight train car together up to Alaska or something. So, like countless people have already said, I'll believe the evidence when I see it. Now, the other possibility here is that Trump fired Comey because of the emails like he said he did, and maybe also because Comey was colluding with the DNC during the Obama administration, as well as being non-cooperative even into Trump's presidency. In case you think that that sounds absurd and there's no evidence for that, here's a quick overview of the downright illegal, or at least incredibly shady, stuff that we have hard evidence for, which the DNC has partook in over the past year and a half or so. Comey handled Hillary Clinton's email situation ridiculously. He basically said, "It's only a treasonous security breach if you meant to do it," by saying that there's no evidence that Hillary Clinton did anything on purpose, but that she was quote-unquote very careless. Hey, newsflash, Comey, she wasn't just some clerk. She was the Secretary of State. And if you go by the law, military personnel would be punished greatly for what she did, maybe even by death for treason if they were careless with such highly classified information, because that's what comes along with high-level security clearances. But of course, Hillary Clinton was supposed to be our next president, as decided by the DNC, which was in charge of the FBI at the time. And Comey was working for the ruling party, which was the DNC, and so he had every motive to make excuses for Hillary Clinton in regards to the emails. So maybe that really is why Trump fired him? That would make sense. If the head of the FBI won't do his job because it means that he's going to punish somebody that he likes, then he should at least be fired, at the very least, right? That would make sense. Next, we have WikiLeaks proving that Debbie Wasserman Schultz colluded with the DNC to screw over Bernie Sanders, and when it came out, she resigned. Sounds like she is guilty to me, though I'm not sure they did anything that is technically illegal in that instance, but they probably did. It was certainly unethical, but I encourage you to look into the law for yourself on that issue. Next, the DNC was caught red-handed hiring people to incite violence at rallies. I've seen the footage from hidden cameras myself, and I will link it in the description of this video if you haven't seen it. The people who were caught in those videos ended up stepping down from their positions immediately after, just like Debbie Wasserman Schultz did. And they were caught on camera saying basically that their orders came from the top. So again, this looks very bad for the DNC as a whole. Finally, we have the former DNC staff member Seth Rich situation, whose murder is under investigation by a private investigator. Some people say he was in contact with WikiLeaks, that the FBI intervened with his murder investigation and took his computer, but then other people are saying that that isn't true. There's seemingly like 5 different stories all coming at once. It's pretty ridiculous. So I'll advise that you at least look at both sides, look into Fox News, some YouTube channels, and then this NPR article for yourself to at least observe all of the different contradictory stories about Seth Rich. I'll link the NPR article in the description because even just in the NPR article, it's very clear that there's a bunch of different stories about this. Regardless, let's just back it up. We do know that Seth Rich had access to the DNC info that was leaked to WikiLeaks. We also know Seth Rich was murdered in Washington, D.C. We know that Julian Assange of WikiLeaks offered a $20,000 reward for information about Seth Rich's murder at some point. We know that there was definitely a motive to murder him if the DNC suspected that he leaked info to WikiLeaks. And considering all of the other shady shit we know about the Democrats, and the fact that there are like 5 different stories about the Comey-run FBI's involvement in the Seth Rich case, how hard is it to believe that Trump just eventually said, "to hell with you," to Comey as a culmination of all of this shit? I mean, sure, if Trump really did some nefarious and illegal thing with Russia to win the election, and he sold out his entire nation to Putin, and somehow that will lead every American to being shipped to the Russian gulag and we're all gonna die, then I will absolutely eat my words and admit that Trump fired Comey to cover his own ass and he's the worst president ever. Of course, I'll be dead. I have no problem being wrong about stuff if I am proven wrong. But we're far from having any sort of proof. We don't even have any solid evidence that Trump colluded with Russia in the election, let alone that he did anything illegal. Because even if Russia did help Trump out a bit, that isn't necessarily illegal. So, my personal verdict is this. I don't really know what exactly is going on, and I'm not going to count any chickens before they've hatched. But one thing that is certain is that there is irrefutable evidence that the Democratic Party has done numerous nefarious things in the past year, and zero evidence that Trump did anything illegal with Russia. The likelihood that Trump fired Comey because he was afraid of Comey investigating his ties to Russia are exceedingly slim because the DC intelligence community has been claiming to have evidence of Trump's ties to Russia for several months, but have never shown this alleged evidence. So why would Trump magically be afraid of Comey all of a sudden now? On the flip side, it's entirely possible that Trump fired Comey because Comey was covering for the DNC in regards to Clinton's emails and maybe the other shady shit I mentioned in this video, like the murder of Seth Rich in particular. The likelihood that Trump really did fire Comey for one or all of these reasons is very highly probable and totally makes sense to me. That's just my take on it. Drop me a comment, help me out on Patreon if you want more from me, and stay tuned.